Hello, Oracles, and here we are finally back. We have coordinated our schedules to get on Health and Wealth episode 2. Today we have Dr. Jack back on, and we have a new guest, Pedro. We will have these guys introduce themselves for you guys who do not know Jack and Pedro. So, Jack, why don't you let us know who you are, what your history is, and what your expertise is?
Yeah, known as Dr. Jack, basically on social media. I started off on YouTube. Channels called Dr. Jack Has Your Back, and just kind of started off about just health and wellness and just sharing knowledge and things like that. But deep down, I think I really wanted to start a Tesla YouTube channel, but I thought that there were too many of them. So I wasn't getting my fill through just doing YouTube and everything else. So I jumped on Twitter, and I'm on there, and I mean that the Tesla community on there is great. To all your viewers, which many I'm sure are Tesla investors. I highly suggest going to Twitter and joining the Tesla community. Just a lot of really great folks, so knowledgeable. And I mean, I've just, since becoming a Tesla investor, I've just learned so much from, just about everything, life, investment, politics, and for better or for worse, and everything else. And yeah, and that's how I met Tim, is actually through that community. And yeah, here I am. Glad to be here. Thanks for
Awesome.
having me.
Yes. Glad to have you on. Yes. Now, I'd highly recommend the Twitter community for a lot of things, especially now. My feeling on it is it's going to grow even more, and we're going to get a lot of great information coming out of there. So, highly recommend that.
Yeah.
So, Pedro, give us a little information about yourself.
All right. Well, I'm Pedro. I am a health coach. I've been doing this for, over 12 years. Most of my clients are actually over 40. Those people that are really working hard on both ends, either with kids or with older parents or with jobs. Those guys and women are just working like double, triple time. So it is my job and my passion to help them be just better in terms of their health, their mindset, their nutrition, and anything else that I can help with. And so working with them, I've learned what I need to be doing when I get to their age and just to be better overall, just to have a better life. Balance is different for everybody when it comes to a life, but just to pick those things that are really important for us to do as in life in general. At the end of the day, or at the end of our lives, what are we going to really be leaving behind? So even with these channels with Oracle, Dr. Jack, all these things are going to stay well beyond after we go. So we have to make sure and take advantage to get out the word and just help people now. And that's what we're doing. That's what I'm passionate about. And here in Connecticut, I've been in Connecticut for about 10 years. Before that, Georgia, but natively from Rhode Island. And I met Tim at a gym many, many years ago.
Yes. Yes, we worked together at the Edge Fitness. So I know the Edge has now gone countrywide, nationwide. So
Yes.
it's blown up pretty big. So it's pretty awesome that that's gone as big as it is. And yeah, it's just amazing the connections we can make with each other and share this kind of knowledge. And this is one of the reasons I like to have you guys on here. And obviously, most of my subscribers are Tesla fans, they're investors, but you can't enjoy your wealth from investing if you don't take care of your health as well. And as you guys know, my voice is still shot from being ill all week long on my vacation. So today, seeing as Dr. Jack and most of his family just went through pretty much the whole gamut of everything that you could have, we're going to discuss for you guys some of the things that you guys can do to prevent yourselves from getting ill, or if you do, some things you can do to help get over it a little bit easier so that this way you can get your health better for the future also. So Jack, what did you and your family have? You had everything, right?
Oh, man. Yeah, if you want COVID, go to Disney World. I knew we were gonna get it if we went down there. Everyone I know that went down to Disney World came back, got COVID, and I was like, oh, we'll be fine. Got vaccinated, everything else. We're ready to go, and I got down there. I think I caught like some type of crud even before I got down there, some type of viral bug, and because I tested while I was there, and then it was negative, and then tested several times and got back. And my wife tested, she showed positive, and I was like, all right, I'll take another one because I do kind of feel different. So then I tested, it was positive. It was during the time of year where I forgot I had really bad allergies, so I opened all the windows of the house, just keep air flowing, try to keep the kids from getting sick too. And anyway, so I got a sinus infection on top of that. So I think I had a viral bug, COVID on top of that, and then the sinus infection layered on top of that.
Nice.
And it I felt like poop, like just pure doo doo. And, I actually have long COVID symptoms from it now. And, it's at least that's what I think it is. I don't know. I've done quite a bit of research on it. Not very many people have it, but it's been like 6 weeks now, 6, 7, 8 weeks, and I still have quite a bit of dry mouth. That was getting better. But then we caught the flu. and, so that sent the whole family, and it's worked its way through, all the kids, my wife, and everybody. And that actually reactivated my dry mouth in a really bad way, actually, to the point that it got me thrush as well. And so then I got some like nice statins, swish and swallow. So I'm just missing RSV, and we have the trifecta done for this, season. And it's been quite the journey. I mean, I'm just glad everyone in the house is finally healthy, and it's it's been a long road, man.
So now were you able to actually enjoy Disney while you were there?
Yeah, I had a great time.
Okay,
It was just kind of like some sniffles. I mean, luckily the symptoms didn't really kick in until we got back. So yeah,
gotcha.
but yeah, we enjoyed it. It's such an expensive trip.
Oh yeah, oh, I
But the
know.
kids loved it.
And
It
how
was
many
great.
kids do you have again, Jack?
I have 3.
3. Okay, yep.
Yeah, they had a great time. But yeah, so I mean, my suggestion to people is basically get plenty of rest, reduce stress, go to bed at the same time every night. If you can't go to bed at the same time every night, wake up at least at the same time every morning. And keep your immune system strong. If you believe in supplements, which some of them I do, some of them I don't, my supplements like, taking zinc, vitamin C. I'm big on vitamin D as well. I think everyone can use vitamin D in this modern day world, and take it with K2 so that the absorption is better. And, omega-3, although I don't know, I've been kind of reading some stuff on omega-3 stuff. I may backtrack on that eventually, but I'm reading some data that it may not help with, I'm all about inflammation. Like if you go to my YouTube channel, it's focus a lot of my videos, especially as of late, on inflammation in the body. I think really a lot of it has to do with that. And, even in my latest research has been into longevity and longevity research. And it's just all about inflammation. I mean, especially as we enter our 40s, which I think all 3 of us are at. I know I'm well into it, but
Yeah.
it just has everything to do with inflammation and decreasing inflammation in your body, which is why I kind of led with big CBD guy, just because of the homeostasis and anti-inflammatory effects of it, and just kind of going from there. Oh, turmeric's a great thing to take. Take it with piperine, which is black pepper, because that increases the absorption by over 2,000%. Anyway, I could talk about this stuff all day. I don't want to take up all the airtime, but
No. It's good. This is good information because a lot of people don't know. And I know for me, like turmeric, I love that. I used to make a turmeric paste with honey, turmeric, and coconut milk. So I'd make
yeah, but I highly suggest, like, I have a lot of patients that come in and they're like, oh yeah, I sprinkle that stuff on my food, I'm good to go. The problem with that is that you don't know how much you're taking, right? For me being a medical doctor, I mean, a lot of it I have to fall back sort of on numbers and data, the science behind it. And I mean, there was a really well done study in rheumatoid arthritis patients, and they took I think it was 1,000 milligrams of turmeric, and it showed to be as effective with obviously less side effects than actually taking prescription strength diclofenac, which is a prescription strength anti-inflammatory, without the effects of like on your kidneys, aligning of your GI system for ulcers and things like that. And I mean, I suggest to all my chronic pain patients. I mean, and it's been astounding. A lot of them are like, you know what? Yeah, my back is still hurt, but God, my joints, they just feel better, like in the morning and things like, I take all this stuff, and, I definitely notice how it affects inflammation in my body too. And, but then, yeah, who knows? Maybe it's all placebo, who knows? But I would think it really does help. But,
Yeah, and
anyway.
I know for me, and so almost actually 3 years ago now, I retired from racing. I beat my body up pretty hard for about 10 years. So I wanted to give it some time down. But one of the things that I noticed when I work out, getting the heart rate up, and I know Pedro can speak to this, you get your heart rate up, builds your immune system up, and this way it helps prevent you from getting a lot of these things in the first place. And when you do get them, you will inevitably fight them even stronger. So that's at least what I've noticed in myself and a lot of my friends in that community also. Pedro, is that something you've had experience with also with your clients?
Absolutely. And I'll piggyback onto Dr. Jack, where everything is about just reducing inflammation, because all chronic disease, pretty much you can trace back to the inflammation. Even if we go into the workouts, we have to know, like, is the workout just enough, or is it too much in order to, is it causing more inflammation than you had, or is it just enough where you're actually reaping the benefits of it? But in terms of inflammation, that is like the golden thing for longevity and for everything. I'm a big fan of Dr. Stephen Gundry, who does the longevity paradox and the plant paradox. And that's where I got all the, like, you have to be low inflammatory in order to reap all the benefits of just recovery, better mental health, better GI system, better everything. And just when we become aware of like what our bodies are doing and how they respond to certain things, environment, food, even the mindset, then we can kind of go, okay, this stuff does cause a lot of inflammation. And inflammation being, is it brain fog? Is it weight gain? Is it, joint pain, like you were saying, Tim? Or is it whatever it is? And so just that key awareness, and then plugging inflammation into it and becoming aware of the inflammation is just really, really life-changing. One of the things that I do with my clients, which I call the lid, you got to go on the lid, which is the low inflammatory diet. And that really changes them from having the back pain or the joint pain, or if most of their goals is related to weight gain or weight loss, that takes care of it. Like, that's like a plus. But when it comes to health, reducing the inflammation is like the key. That it's amazing. And so that gets me just really excited to hear that you guys are on the same page with that.
Yeah, I know one of the things, like when I was doing the racing, because you're putting a lot of strain on your body. You put your workouts in, but when you do those races, you are putting yourself way beyond what you would normally do. And so you focus on a lot of these anti-inflammatory foods. So like for me, blueberries was always a big one. What are some of the other like just natural anti-inflammatory foods that you guys recommend?
All the berries are great to go. I would stay away from, if following our circadian rhythm, I probably would stay away from most fruits right now in the wintertime, but sticking to all the berries. I don't know, what do you think, Dr. Jack?
Yeah, like I have this whole sheet of anti-inflammatory diet that I give to patients and go over. You can go online and find like all sorts of things. Some of the stuff I agree with. Some of them I kind of question, like like eggs is something you're technically supposed to avoid and things like that for anti-inflammation. But I mean, eggs are so, I don't know, I consider them like a superfood. They're chock full of so many vitamins and things like that. But I mean, it's, what I tell people is that, I don't know, there's so much to learn about nutrition just kind of overall. And especially the American medical school system just does a horrible job of it, educating, healthcare the doctors about it. And it's, I try to keep it simple for people. I basically tell them that, look, you just really want to eat real food.
Yeah.
More plants, over, meat, protein, and things like that. Although I don't believe in completely cutting out meat, protein entirely, like some people do. But I say typically, 80% plants, 20% protein from like, meat and things like that. And, but even the meat, there's like all these things to know about it, like grass-fed beef would be a lot better because of, what they eat and how that kind of translates into, when you consume the meat and what it breaks down to inside your body as far as like omegas and things like that. But then, I also tell them that if you eat, concentrate on like things like fermented foods and, things like that, because Tim, you probably know this, but I mean, I tweet quite a bit about the gut biome and like, talk about fasting. And that's like my latest, like I go on these kicks because, I'm a big reader. And as I'm diving into a new book and like, rehashing and relearning stuff, like I just get on Twitter, like I just write all these things down and share them with the Twitter community. And it's just, I'm huge in the gut biome. I'm huge into like intermittent fasting. I'm really thinking about getting into extreme temperature therapy, so cryotherapy, and
I've heard very good things about that.
and things like that. I'm watching this really great show. It has what's his name, Chris Hemsworth, the
Yep.
Thor guy. I think it's called Boundless or Limitless.
It's Limitless. Yeah, it's awesome. It's
Yeah.
on Disney. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's on Disney. That's right.
Yep.
And I mean, he's doing like the cryo thing, and that stuff I've been researching with Dr. St. Clair at Stanford, who does like longevity research, and he kind of led me down the rabbit hole with his book Lifespan, which is somewhere back here on the shelf. But in regards to just kind of, I mean, we can, basically increase our longevity now and through all these different things like, hyperbaric oxygen chamber and extreme temperatures and things like that. And but I mean, to go back to what you were saying, Pedro, I mean, it all kind of ties back into keeping inflammation down. That's like the true killer, right? Of like heart disease. Like again, like you said, a lot of the quote unquote diseases of old age, if you look at it, it all ties into inflammation. And that begets like, the metabolic syndrome. The other huge thing that I preach about is insulin resistance. And people just, so many people go about weight loss in the wrong way. And they think, a calorie in is equal to a calorie out. That just couldn't be further from the truth. 100 calories of Twinkies is not broken down the same way inside your body from 100 calories of, say, almonds with the fiber. And you cause that kind of slow insulin release. Dr. Jason Fung, any of his books, like, how to the complete guide of fasting, as well as the obesity code, the insulin code. Like, I mean, every one of his books is fantastic in the way he kind of breaks it all down and just explains like, look, this is the appropriate way to go about weight loss to keep it off. It's not going to be some type of, trendy crash diet where you're going to lose a ton of weight overnight, but then you're going to gain more back at the end of, by the time it's all said and done. I mean, this is like understanding what insulin resistance is, understanding how eating, highly processed, refined carbohydrates and things like that. And it's just all about insulin resistance and cortisol, which is a stress hormone. Keeping those two things at bay, but you first got to understand how it occurs to begin with. And, it does take quite a bit of researching and education, unfortunately. So,
yeah. And I would go back to the body awareness and mind awareness and just being aware of your body, of what, every time you intake something, how do you feel? How do you react? How do you respond? And then, because I'll tell you this, I was big paleo many years ago, big on paleo. I was eating 8 eggs every single day, and it was fine. I had no problem. Now I've had long COVID. I got long COVID from last December. There's been effects of just coughing and phlegm every single day since then. But now with body awareness, because you are more aware of your body and inflammation and everything, I swear, just like the last 3 weeks, I said, you know what? Every time I have an egg now, I feel off. I think I'm getting allergic to eggs. And so though I was eating 8 eggs a day and I had no problem, but because I'm more aware of my body now, I'm like, okay, well, maybe eggs are not working for me anymore. And so that's where I tell my clients where, you're not going to restrict yourself in terms of diet, but you have to be aware what works for you. Because we do have a low inflammatory diet that you can follow, but not everything on the list is actually going to work for you, or not everything not on the list should be avoided. And so it comes down to just body awareness. And what we don't do a lot is think. We just go. We're just trying to be busy and doing stuff and just following without actually taking the time to go, okay, just what's going on over here, and then learn. So again, just awareness for me and my clients.
Yeah, I know for me, going to the body awareness is very important. I know doing yoga really helped me get to that place and just sensing like something's off. It's like when you're driving your car and you're like, ooh, that's not right. And, something that somebody else may not notice. For me, usually when I get sick, I'll wake up in the morning, I'll be like, ooh, something's off. I sense something coming on, and I'm not usually a big juice drinker, but I'll go out and I'll grab some orange juice just to, overflow myself with some vitamin C and sugar just to kind of amp up my immune system. That usually combats it, and I don't get anything after that normally. Clearly that didn't happen this time, but the body awareness is extremely important, and I totally agree with that. Let me jump in here with Jen. Jen, she just missed it. Pedro's not you're not a doctor, are you, Pedro?
No, I'm not a doctor.
Okay. What are your qualifications?
So I am certified personal trainer from back then. I just finished my level 2 PN master health coach just a few months ago. I'm excited about that. And I've been doing it for, over 12 years now.
Nice.
Wow. Nice.
Here's Vinny. Vinny is shopping right now for houses. So yes, Jack just dropped this Delta 8 video. Definitely recommend watching that.
Yeah, it's I have so many patients that show up to taking Delta 8, and the stuff I started researching and finding on it, it's Man, it's dangerous stuff, and I think people need to be aware. I think we're staring at like a slow motion train wreck, and I don't know
What
what's going to take for the government to step in and regulate this more.
I haven't had a chance to watch your video. Just give us a quick briefing on what Delta 8 is.
So Delta 8 is a cannabinoid. A cannabinoid being, like Delta 9 THC is what's typically more popular known with like marijuana and things like that. And then, CBD, there's, over 100 other ones. And so Delta 8 kind of hit the market because especially in a lot of states where they did not legalize Delta 9 THC. And so because what they're doing, even though Delta 8 naturally occurs inside the cannabis plant, it's considered a minor cannabinoid. So it's very, very small amounts. It's not enough to naturally extract out of the plant and then, produce it, put it on the shelf and sell it for a profit. And so what these people have been doing is playing with these solvents and acids and basically, doing their own little cocktail and making Delta 8 from CBD. And because the CBD comes from hemp, which is legal in these states, it's a loophole that it becomes legal. And Delta 8, people that take it, I mean, they do report it has a more favorable side effect than actually using Delta 9 THC. It doesn't, cause like a lot of the, like anxiety and things like that, that Delta 9, typically has a higher chance of. And so, I got all these patients, they're so against marijuana, but then they come in, they're telling me they're taking Delta 8 and they're like, yeah, I feel great, and I'm just like, geez, and so the stigma of marijuana, it's just amazing how people's psyche works. But anyway, so, I started doing some research into all of this. And the problem is, I don't think the problem is so much Delta 8 per se. It's the fact that it is synthetically made. And with the different solvents and acids that are used, they literally, like if you run a liquid chromatography on the testing of a lot of these Delta 8 products that are sold at gas stations, grocery stores, vape shops, you'll see spikes on the liquid chromatography. Liquid chromatography is how you identify what substances are inside anything. You'll see spikes, and some of these labs will flat out tell you, they're like, you see that spike? We have no idea what that is. Like literally they, subject all this heat to this, this mixture, and they're creating things that labs don't even know what they're creating. And then people are ingesting it. And there was this really sad story of, I didn't read all the details of it, but supposedly a little 4-year-old kid got a hold of his mom's, Delta 8 gummies. And that's where the other problem, the marketing of it all, it's not like a special, like medicine break open bottle. I mean, it's just in like Ziploc bag and it looks like colorful gummies, like a kid's gummies.
Yeah.
And, the kid ate all this, apparently like had a seizure and died. And, to me, I don't know, my theory is that I don't think any one cannabinoid by itself is, can be lethal. I think it was probably what else was inside of that gummy, besides the Delta 8 in very high quantities. Because I mean, they've done all this lab testing and they found like mercury, lead, like all these different things inside of these gummies and, these vapes and all these things are Delta 8. And people just don't understand how dangerous this is for them. And it's just kind of my way of, I don't know, I don't have much time these days. And so it takes a lot for me to do a video. And, when something like this, I feel like it can, potentially really help someone. I feel compelled to put out such a video. So anyway, that's the kind of the cliff notes of it.
Yeah, no, and that's good to know because, with CBD, the benefits behind CBD, a lot of people are using it. But again, like you said, it's important to know what else is in it. You've got to know where you're getting it from. And going back to the talk that we were having about having natural foods, if you've got synthetically made stuff, it may not be bad, but you've really got to look into it and research it to determine whether it really is or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Vin, another question here. As far as the vitamins, what is your take on multivitamins versus taking individual ones you mentioned alone?
Me specifically, I guess.
Yeah, you were mentioning some vitamins earlier.
Yeah, so in the world of multivitamins, I mean, there have been a couple of really well done studies, and it hasn't really been able to show, significant differences. I mean, but then again, I mean, there's so much data coming out all the time, right? Like I was reading somewhere like the US National Medicine Library or something like that. They have something like 30 some million, peer reviewed published articles, and every year a million new articles being published. So, I could say this and tomorrow everything could be invalid, but I mean, I have seen some data on, multivitamin and possibly helping with like kind of mental status issues, like as we get older, like, helping with like dementia, things like that. But overall, it seems that multivitamin does not seem to, it's not as awesome as what obviously the people that make the supplements will have you believe. And, nothing replaces like a good diet. There's just, I've been practicing medicine for 15 years. And what I find is that you just can't cheat food and real and like just science and like chemistry inside your body. Like you just, nitpicking various things and supplements out of things, and consuming it that way. It's just never as good as doing it the more natural way in regards to an absorption and things like that, because that's just not the way, Mother Nature or, evolution has basically, that's just not the way we're made. And so, and then you have to realize that there are things inside of multivitamins that some people, if you get too much of, can be bad for you. Like if there's too much, vitamin B complexes, too much iron. I mean, these things can actually be, fatal in some instances. And so, you really got to kind of be aware. I always suggest people, look, don't just start taking supplements. I mean, you really want to go to a doctor, get some just basic blood work done, and, so that you know what you're looking at before you just start taking a ton of supplements and various things.
Yeah, one of the things I remember when I was more heavily researching all of this myself was they were discussing at that time how having a multivitamin, some of the things may not be as potent as others just because everything's all mixed together in one. And then like you said, when you're having food, you get a lot of those nutrients and vitamins from the food themselves. Now you're taking multivitamin that puts way more into your body than you even need. So I actually ended up taking multivitamins out of my nutrition. I noticed no difference whatsoever. So I'm like, there's no point. To me, it was a waste of money because I didn't need it. So then I did basically what you said, and I didn't do blood testing, but I just tracked what are the nutrients I'm getting in. And I just used MyFitnessPal, which worked out great because it broke down the majority of the basics. And I saw what I had in my basic nutrition. I'm like, oh, I didn't need a multivitamin, and if I needed it, I could see on that chart, hey, I'm a little bit low in, B12. All right, cool. So I'll grab one of those. But otherwise, that was really it, and I highly recommend you guys do the same thing. If you're going to be doing it, is just do a breakdown of what your nutrition is bringing in and get the majority from your nutrition. Don't try and cheat it with a supplement.
And if I may add to that,
Oh, yeah.
So what I tell my clients is, first, we want to do a blood panel. Like, what does your blood work say? The second, if you are, because I don't believe that even the healthiest of people does not eat what we're supposed to. We just don't, right? We have really busy lives. We're just not eating like we're supposed to. So is there room for a multivitamin or a supplement there? Probably there is. At some point, especially if you're a tax accountant and January and all that time, you're going to be busier. So you're not going to be as efficient as normally would be. So you're probably going to be needing vitamin D. 80% of Americans are deficient in vitamin D as it is. So what I tell them is, look, we're going to do vitamins. We're going to do whatever it is you need after we see the numbers, but you're going to make sure that it's NSF certified. So the National Sanitation Foundation, which they actually certify, it's a really expensive certification to go through, but at least we're knowing that you're getting what the bottle says, that it doesn't have any impurities, and it's actually going to not cause any side effects. So everything's under the right dosage. And then everything has to work in synergy. So just like, I think the question was, should we take one or should we take multiple? When we take a lot of multiple ones, different ones, like we said, they don't work in synergy. We have no idea. So that's the main point of like doing the research. Like Tim, you did the numbers. Like I've done the diets and like, you know what? We're falling short from calcium. We can only absorb 500 milligrams of calcium at a time. So we know that, you're going to have to supplement if you're not drinking milk, or if you're not doing a lot of leafy greens, then obviously you're not going to get your calcium. But we need your calcium for your heart and for your muscles. So that's where I go, okay, let's just go back to the awareness, like through numbers and through blood work, and then through just how do you feel? For me, for example, when I don't take my multivitamins, it's different. I feel like after like 3 days, I'm like, I just don't feel as peppy. And then as soon as I take my multivitamins, maybe it is placebo, maybe it's just psychosomatic or whatever. But I do feel the difference when I do take them versus when I stop for a few days. So
Yeah,
again,
please don't hear me wrong. I mean, I think that everybody is built differently,
yeah,
and I think everyone has like different needs and everything else. I would say, Pedro, in your situation, I mean, by all means, if you notice that as sort of like a consecutive thing, then yeah, chances are you're not missing everything you're needing in that something inside that multivitamin is probably what you need, but not
right,
everything you need inside of it, right? But I mean,
exactly.
it's hard to kind of figure out. And this all kind of takes it all back to kind of the gut biome too, and why I'm so big on it, right? I mean, you could eat whatever you want, but if you aren't nursing your gut biome, and say you have something like leaky gut syndrome, I mean, you're not even going to absorb, right, the vitamins and minerals from the food and everything else. I mean, in this day and age, in our generation, we grew up, I don't know about you guys, if I went in to see my, primary care with a stubbed toe, it seemed like I got thrown on antibiotics growing up. And I mean, it just wipes out your gut biome. And, no fault of, my primary care doctor growing up, they just didn't know better back then, but now, I mean, with all the research and everything that we know about the gut biome and how important it is and leaky gut, like I'm a huge believer in it all. And so, I mean, I myself, I'm kind of going off topic here, but just for a quick second, I mean, after, like 17 years of my life, I took Zyrtec because my allergies were so bad. I was allergic to everything except dog. And, then I did 7 years of allergy shots. And I was probably just tired of it after the allergy shots. I was like, Jesus, even after I did this, I'm still having all these issues. And so what I did was I started focusing, I learned about the gut biome, and I started eating, like more fiber to feed the gut. And then, more drinking kombucha, eating fermented pickled foods, kimchi, sauerkraut, all these things, and kind of nursing my gut back. And for the first time, I got off of Zyrtec. And I mean, I don't think that's a coincidence. And, so, I mean, it's just amazing how much, I don't know, even with modern day medicine, how little we still kind of understand how everything kind of ties into itself.
Oh yeah.
And so,
And it's funny when talking about the foods, like I look back at, the lack of knowledge, let's say we had, or, you can go back hundreds of years and people had the knowledge, but they didn't know. And it was just their prescription. And a lot of times it was foods. My whole family, we grew up eating stuffed cabbage all the time, sauerkraut nonstop. We loved that kind of stuff. None of us ever had allergy issues. None
yeah.
of us had these kind of problems. Now you're saying this, I'm like, wow, it's tying it all together, thinking, I bet most of what we were just eating naturally as our diet was helping with all of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Feeding the having those prebiotics, you feed the probiotics, this really
Yep.
makes a difference. I can attest the same as you, Dr. Jack, where I was on Allegra for many years. And as soon as I got into a more anti-inflammatory diet, eating those things, then I didn't have the phlegm and everything else, where now it makes a difference because I'm resting and I'm waking up more energized. And if I'm able to, if I have a thing with someone, I can actually respond versus reacting. Because now I can see I'm not tired all the time. So
Yep.
it makes a big difference just in life in general, and especially like investment. Imagine if you're just angry or foggy brain and you're trying to invest in Tesla, it's not going to work well.
Actually, that's a perfect tie-in because like you were talking about vitamin D before, one thing I noticed with myself is I used to get seasonal depression and I thought it was just me and who I was. Then I realized that when I was married, my ex-wife's birthday was on October 20th. We would have a party then. My birthday is November 8th. Then we get into Thanksgiving, and then Christmas, and then New Year's. It was like 2.5 to 3 months of just not eating well at all. So when I got divorced, I started doing the racing and I taught myself, I was like, you know what? And I used to put on 30 pounds every winter when I did this. I'm like, let me not do this. Let me see how long I can go. So I obviously went past her birthday, went past mine, and then it would be just Thanksgiving and Christmas. And then it was just Christmas. And then it was just New Year's. And then I stopped it all together. And I noticed my seasonal depression went away because I was now eating the right foods all winter long. And when you get seasonal depression, that's highly emotional right there. So now going to your point, when it comes to trading and investing, we talk about here all the time is do not emotionally trade. You should not have your emotions involved in the stock market whatsoever. So if you are eating properly, that is going to help you significantly when you are in investing. I gotta drink
Everything,
my
yeah,
tea.
absolutely. Get some tea. Absolutely, it helps with every decision, everything. It's the difference between you hitting somebody on the road versus like, yeah, okay, just go, right? It's stuck in
Yeah.
traffic. versus
It
just
truly nutrition and having proper diet and feeding your body the way it should will significantly change your mood and your attitude and the way you react to everything around you. That is huge. That's a big piece that a lot of people don't recognize either. And going back to your point, Pedro, about just understanding how your body is reacting to different things. And it's not just a matter of, hey, I had a salad today, I feel awesome. It's, I had a salad for the last month. Now I feel amazing and my life is changing. You're not going to change your life in one meal. But if you start doing it consistently, you're going to do better. And when you keep your emotions out of everything, your life just starts to flow better. And I talk about luck on here regularly. And I personally don't believe in luck. I think it is a matter of taking advantage of opportunities that will then get you to the next level to take better advantage of more opportunities. By not having your emotions involved in that, you can then logically make a decision as to what's going on, and that'll help you make better decisions going forward as well. I don't know if you guys have ever recognized that in your life.
Yeah, to talk about mood, I mean, one thing the other thing I've been researching a lot lately is intermittent fasting. And, I am historically someone that gets pretty hangry. And, as my wife can attest to, and anyone that knows me. And, I was like, oh, there's no way, there's no way I can miss a meal. Yeah. And, but I mean, I just kept, again, reading about the health benefits, like the longevity, the anti-inflammatory effects and everything. I started going like, it's easier to go 12. I think anyone can go 12 to 14 hours pretty easily with like an intermittent fast. It's pushing to that 16 to the 18 hours. And that's where I'm at now, is doing the 18. I want to push myself to like 2-3 day fasting. But, what I've found is just, it's pretty amazing how, I don't know what your body gets used to. And, I don't get hangry. And, I mean, I can go for periods pretty easily now of like 16, 18 hours without food and not even think about it. And it's actually very liberating too, in regards to you just have more time, you save more money to put more money in Tesla as well. And, and then, I mean, the other thing is just that it's amazing how little food our body truly needs to thrive. It's like I constantly tell my patients, especially ones that are trying to lose weight, I'm like, no, you don't need to eat breakfast. I actually suggest you skip it. I mean, because look at breakfast. It's mainly like, a dessert bar basically for most people, right? I mean, it's full of like bagels and donuts and like, everything else. And I mean, it's just, breakfast is not the most important meal of the day. That is a complete farce. That is actually something made up by the food industry, which obviously stand to profit the more you eat. And I mean, less is more, exactly. And I mean, what's really funny is that once you're doing the intermittent fasting, and I don't know if you guys have tried this yet, but it's you really kind of become confused as to when you're truly hungry. Because I mean, I find that, when I get hungry, if I just like drink a glass of water, I mean, and just wait like 10, 15 minutes, I'm not hungry again for like a couple hours. And then it really just kind of makes me wonder. I'm like, when I'm really hungry, I'm just like, all right, am I really hungry? Do I really need to eat, or should I just wait another 15? I mean, I find you become very, very aware of how often you eat just because of social cues. Like you were saying a little earlier, Tim, around the holidays, right? People's birthdays and like all these other things. You're like, oh, yeah, everybody, it's festive. I got to eat, I got to have this cake. I got to have this, apple pie and all these other things. And they've actually done studies on all of this and found that, it's a huge, more than half the amount of time, people eat, not because they're hungry, but just because of social situations.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's amazing.
Am I hungry or am I bored?
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. Boredom.
thirsty.
Yeah.
And I know mentally for myself, it was, like I've just got nothing going on. And if you are busy and active, like I think about running my running my long races, I'll be running a 9 hour, 10 hour, 12 hour race. I'm not eating at all. Maybe a couple of like gummy chews along the way. That's it. Like, and that's very physical, strenuous work that I am doing. And I'm barely eating any calories whatsoever. Yes, I need to replenish them afterwards. But a lot of times I've recognized that if you're busy and occupied doing something, you may forget to eat because you didn't need to.
Yeah.
And to go back to your intermittent fasting, where I don't even like to call it that because I don't know, maybe I've had like bad stuff from it. So I just call it, your eating window, where I tell people that are
Time
going,
eating.
our members and clients, where, listen, if you're going to get one thing out of all this that we've gone through, is that 3 to 4 hours before your bedtime, hopefully your bedtime is around 10 or 10:30, you're not eating after that. So you're closing the kitchen around 6 or 7:30 at the latest. And the reason behind is so that they have the why is that, and you can back me up on this, Dr. Jack, is how your melatonin cycle starts to go up around 7 o'clock. And once you introduce food again, that stops, and now you have to digest. So if you're digesting, you are not resting. So if you're not resting, you're going to get up tired. You're going to tend to eat more in the morning or throughout the day, or you're going to be just moody and all those other things. And so the intermittent fasting or the eating window makes a huge difference. It does for me and for everybody.
Yeah, that's the other thing that people call, right, timed eating. But yeah, well, I could go on and on about melatonin. Don't get me started about like melatonin supplements and like how
Episode 3.
parents are giving it to their children, which I totally
Yeah.
disagree with for various
Terrible.
reasons. But it's I mean, what I tell people is that it has everything to do with insulin. It's just all about insulin. If you really want, it's like anything else, right? Like say alcohol. The first time any of us had our first beer, right? I mean, we probably got inebriated off of like half a beer. But if you keep at it, right, and you keep dosing yourself, keep exposing. I mean, this is the way your body responds to things on a chemistry level. Once you keep introducing a certain substance, say insulin, right, because of the glucose that's constantly introduced into your blood, well, you start to slowly develop resistance to the insulin. And so, the longer you can go without it, right? So the longer you can go without a beer, right, you get that same impact again by taking less. And the downside of insulin is that, what does insulin do, right? It gets released from the pancreas and basically pulls the glucose out and, stores it in the form of long-term energy, namely in the form of fat. And so, when you're doing that constantly, and say you're eating these processed and refined foods, right? And so your body's just seeing these huge spikes of glucose constantly. So it's constantly, firing up the pancreas. And so you're constantly getting this release of insulin, and your cells basically start responding to it. And so what happens is that, your cells, the insulin isn't able to push the glucose into the cells anymore. And so now your cells start to think they're starving. The reality is they're not starving. There's all this surrounded energy in the form of fat, but your body can't access it. Why? Because of the fact that the insulin is there, right? Insulin keeps things stored as fat. It will not allow your cells to kind of tap into that long-term energy storage. And so, this is the reason why you have people that are, overweight and they're so hungry. It's because literally every cell in their body is telling them that they're starving when it's not. But that's why these people, they go on these like kind of calorie restricted diets. And ultimately, how long can you go through that suffering of like fighting that, that type of hunger? And so they go about these weight loss programs in a very, very wrong way. And, they're not addressing it as a insulin resistance issue. They're addressing it as just purely like a calories issue. And when you do that, you start dropping your metabolism and all these things. And that kind of has more prolonged effects. And so, once they come off of these diets and they start eating again, and they eat, even though they eat less calories, their metabolism's now down lower. And so they gain even more weight back as well. And it's I don't know if I did a kind of a good job explaining it. I mean,
this is literally like, to put it into, fifth grader terminology here. When I was working at the gym, we had women who would come in and they were doing Zumba and they were trying to lose weight, and they would come in, they would say, I would do Zumba 7 days a week. I'm burning off 1,000 calories in Zumba. And then I come out and I give them a 1,200 calorie sugar shake. And I was like, this is exactly what you're doing wrong. I'm like, they're like, I'm not eating much. I'm like, you're not eating enough. Your body has now gone into storage mode. So all you're doing is storing everything that you're consuming, because you've now told your body that it's not going to be eating for a while, and you're going through some strenuous workout. So your body is now in panic mode, and it's not going to burn anything ever. And you're just going to keep putting weight on instead of burning it.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
Tim, if we take this even to the bigger picture, we're focused, yes, on the body, but let's think about the brain, where every time we're introducing just all this type of food, or we're overweight, we're actually, the more weight we have, the smaller our brain gets. I was watching a TED talk from Dr. Daniel Amen from the Amen Clinic. So he had a great look at things. He was like, as soon as I saw the brain scans, I dropped 28 pounds because I wanted my brain to go back to normal size. But even things like that affect us and affect our brains, especially when it comes to investment. We're investing because we want a long-term future, gains where we can actually enjoy all those gains. But we see a lot of people that, we are living older. We're 85, even 100, but you're sitting on a wheelchair and you don't even know that you're there. So what is your point? Yeah, you can afford to pay for the nursing home, but what's the point if we don't even know we're there? So that's where then we take it back to the eating window, and we go, okay, so Dr. Jack, you're already doing 18 hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
You said 18 hours. So now we're activating the lymphatic system. So that is really removing all toxins from the brain. It's harder for me because then that means I would have to stop eating around 4, then eat till 10, and then I just start to get weak because I do some of the physical exercises. It's not as fun, but I highly recommend, and you can look it up with Dr. Gundry, where the lymphatic system, you can activate it after 18 hours of fasting. You stop eating at 4, which a lot of people do. If you don't realize, if you have a busy day, you probably do already, and then don't eat till 10 a.m. the next day. And that really gives you, if you do that even once a month, and maybe you have a family history of Alzheimer's or just things like that, it's just going to help your brain health overall.
Yeah. And here we got Mike, Galveston County Mike. Hey, Tim, as a disabled veteran, my attempts to intermittent fast did not go well till I drastically reduced my carb intake. It was carbs that gave my bad withdrawal feelings. Now I do 18 to 16 hour fast. Great job, Mike.
Yep.
Yeah,
and he hits around the head, right? There's 3 macronutrients, right? There's protein, there's fat, there's carbs. What's the one macronutrient that we don't need to survive? Carbs. And that's just what I think the average American, like 67, or I think it's like about mid 60 some percent of our daily intake of calories comes from carbohydrates.
Yeah.
And I mean, and we wonder why we're sicker, heavier, dying of cancer more than ever before. I mean, I think it all boils down to our lack of understanding about nutrition. I think it has to boil down to the very broken food pyramid that people have come up with that's completely unfounded off of any science. And I mean, it just, I don't know, I could talk about it all night.
Yeah, I know when I was racing and really tracking my nutrition on a daily basis, I was on a 40-40-30 diet. It was 40% protein, 40% carbs, and 30% fat.
Mm-hmm.
And the carbs and everything was one very important thing that I always taught people and learned myself was food is fuel. That's it. You are putting fuel in your body. And now we're getting into electric vehicles, but you want to put the proper electricity in your vehicle. But for those of us who still use gas cars, you don't want to put the cheap stuff in. Sometimes you can, it's fine. But like if you've got, dirt in your gas, it's not going to work well. You're going to destroy your car. You've got to put good stuff into your vehicle. And the better you have, performance cars, you're not going to run on 87. You're going to be running that on 93 or better. Race cars run on 105, 110. That's high-end fuel. If you want a high-end performing body, you've got to put high-end performing fuel into your body. It's as simple as that. And then you've got to time it. For me, it was all about, when do I eat the food? You didn't want to have the carbs right before you go to bed at night. That was horrible. Like what's the typical nutrition that we would have growing up is a bowl of ice cream before we go to bed. Like, are you insane? Like doing that now, thinking about it, I was like, wow, no wonder we have so many nutrition problems.
Yes, equivalent of going to a Tesla supercharger versus a the Electrify America charger? Is that what they're called, like, or whatever? It's I tweeted recently, like, I had my first Tesla supercharger experience after owning a Tesla for a year because I normally just don't drive much. I just charge at home, and I just couldn't believe how convenient it was. My wife had used it one time, so the credit card information was already in it. I literally just walked up, just picked up the thing, plugged it in, sat in my car for 8 minutes. It charged like 100, which is 100 miles, and that's all I needed. And I just unplugged it and just drove home. I just couldn't believe how convenient, because I was reading about there's always YouTubers that make all these videos, and they use the Electrify America or all these non-Tesla chargers, and I mean, half the time they're broken. Like I remember one YouTuber was really funny. He's like, I'm convinced that, what this company is trying to do is destroy the EV space by making the experience so miserable that it will force people to sell their electric vehicle back and be like, I'm never buying an electric vehicle again. I'm going to stick with my internal combustion engine, because they're just like, half the time the chargers don't work, or they're not working the way they're supposed to, or they're charging super slowly. And I don't know. It's yet another reason why Tesla's leading the way, right?
Oh yeah. And so we've got a few minutes left. So we're going to go back to a point that Pedro had made about people who, when you get older in life, sure, you can live to 100 years old, but what are you doing with it? If you're going to be investing your money and getting all of this wealth that you plan on passing to future generations, but you have to spend it all on a nursing home, is that really worth it? So now we can get in some investing. I know Pedro had a few questions for us about investing. Throw them at us and we'll see what we can answer for you.
Well, I just want to know, you're a newbie, just like me. I've been entrepreneur, health coach, doing everything else. I'm like, what do I do first? And maybe, all the other guys that are on are obviously experts, but there's going to be people that I can then educate. What do you do first? And what are the things that we need to be looking for?
So, so somebody as an entrepreneur, if you have a full-time job that offers a 401k, absolutely do that. 401k, for you as an entrepreneur, you could do a Roth IRA, a regular IRA. Those are both limited to $6,000 per year as an individual. So I highly recommend capping those out. If your health plan is an HSA account, I highly recommend capping that out. That I believe is $3,000 a year. So you can cap that out as an individual there also. When you're into it, and again, none of this is financial advice, I can definitely advise you to do these things, but when you're actually choosing what you're going to put in your portfolio there, look at it, find out what's best for you, depends on your age, maybe find a financial advisor. Something I am adding as part of my memberships is I can give you some friendly advice with it. And I'll sit down with you guys one-on-one, still not financial advice, but I can give you guys that kind of tips that what I've learned. And that's really, and then looking at the stock market, I personally like to diversify because for me, I want to try to find passive income. So yes, I love what I do. I know, Pedro, you love what you do. Jack, you mostly love what you do sometimes. So it's like, if you're doing what you love, you're not working. That's awesome. But some people want to have that passive income, and that's where we can pass the generational wealth forward to other generations in the future. So that could be, real estate is a big one that people can get into. You got your 401ks. So you can definitely get a 401k outside of a job. You don't need to have a job to contribute to that. You can contribute $22,500. That goes up to $23,500 next year for individuals. So any one of these funds that you can put your money into for retirement is awesome. I recommend capping those out. And then, you've got the stocks, you've got the equity market. You can go into index funds. If you get into index funds, it's a little safer place to be. Some of the index funds are kind of getting stale at the moment. I don't know if they're going to be changing, but many people still believe highly in them. Then you can get into different stocks. We've got growth stocks. You've got, lower end stocks. So growth stocks are the ones that are going to be beat down right now. That's why personally I recommend, not recommending, not financial advice, but that's why I'm investing most of my money into the higher growth stocks, because they have the better potential of giving me a better return on my investment over the long term, but it's higher risk, higher reward. So that's where you got to kind of balance that out and do your own due diligence as to what you want to invest in. This is why us, Dr. Jack and myself are so big into Tesla. When you look at a high growth stock like Tesla, who has the potential in the future to do what they're going to do, there's no other stock that I want to put my money into other than Tesla, really.
Now, do you guys see any other EV companies headed in Tesla's trajectory or right after Tesla?
No.
I mean, like, it's crazy because Tesla's trajectory is going up in so many different directions. I can say there's like Enphase Energy, who may be on the same level with Tesla on the energy side of things initially with solar and battery storage. That would be it. And then you can have, maybe some of the Chinese automotive makers, like maybe a BYD, as far as the vehicles go in China specifically, who might be okay with competing with Tesla, maybe. And like, there's very few companies who might be able to compete with Tesla, or at least do what they're doing on an individualized basis on a specific area of what Tesla's doing. But for everything that Tesla's doing, there's nobody out there right now who's doing what Tesla's doing.
Yeah, I don't get like a lot, it's so many people. I feel like they get this feeling of like, oh, they've missed the train with Tesla. It's already had its run and it's over. And everyone's always looking for the next Tesla. What's the next Tesla? I think that, I've been investing in Tesla for many years now, and there's never been a safer time, in my opinion. Again, not financial. None of this is advice is on here, but like, medical or financial, but like it is, there's never been a safer time, in my opinion, to invest in Tesla. I mean, the verticalities. I mean, when you talk about, kind of diversifying your risk, if you will, like say into a 401k and all these other things. And, I mean, that's great. You spread a little here, and there. But like when, what you have with Tesla is in itself, multiple startups inside of one company. It is a type of index by itself, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And while, the argument on, the Tesla Q side is, or, by people in general, is that they are, look, you got to follow where the revenue is coming from, right? And as of right now, it's all coming from their EVs, and so you have to look at that in a much bigger light, if you will. But I mean, I think that Tesla is only beginning its, growth curve in regards to where it's going to go these days. And it's, if you were to take $500, right, and put it in a S&P 500 index ETF, so a dollar goes into each company, right? I mean, if anything, this downturn during the pandemic, what it has shown us is, if you look at and follow what's kept the market afloat, it's mainly the FANGs, right? Facebook, Amazon, and Google. And
Apple, yeah.
I mean, Apple, yeah. And I mean, if you take that, I mean, at the very least, don't, in my opinion, invest in you don't like the risk tolerance of putting it all in, say, one company. Which is how I've gone about it, all in with Tesla. I mean, I say all that, but I mean, I got some, real estate and other things on the side too. But like, as far as stock, I mean, that's it. And so, then, I mean, just create your own group of companies, cookie jar of companies, and just invest in the FANGs, if you will, or something like that. Because I think this passive investing, much like what Kathy Wood and many others have said in the past, I think it does kind of create this bubble in the long term, because, I will argue the top, I don't know, 10 companies, if you compare the top 10 companies in S&P 500 index ETF to, say, the bottom 250, 300 companies, I mean, how many of those companies are zombie companies? They're being floated along, and their stocks are being artificially inflated only because of the fact that they're in the S&P 500 index ETF, and people that are just kind of passively investing into these companies, I mean, just artificially boosting their stock. But the reality is they're just a zombie of a company.
And Pedro, so just so you know, Pedro, a zombie company is a company who does not make enough revenue to even pay off the interest on their loans.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know, that's kind of the way I go about it. But I mean, you have to be okay with volatility and never invest any money that you can't part ways with. When I invest, I always, in my mind, mentally, I tell myself that I'm not going to see this money for 7 to 10 years. That is my long term, because anything shorter than that, you're a gambler. I truly believe in that saying. To be a true investor, you should, do your due diligence. I believe in not spreading it out everywhere. I believe in, really fine tuning and being a sharpshooter in that regard, doing your due diligence, and then, let the dice roll and be in it for the long haul, 7 to 10 years. And I don't know, but man, you gotta be okay with it. I mean, watching your portfolio drop like 50, 60%. It's a stomach.
This is why you've got to eat properly and keep your emotions out.
Right. That really does tie in the longevity in terms of, like, you're not going to eat a meal and then just all of a sudden be healthy. You're going to see it long term. But I do have one last question, and it's because Tesla is, as you said, more, if you see it as an index, if we look at the big picture in terms of climate change, and I know like California has a whole lot of other new rules in terms of building codes and things where they want buildings to be different, built different. Is there something that we should be looking at in a different kind of area, but similar than Tesla, that combines the EV and, in this case, maybe just housing or real
Well,
estate?
so a lot of the codes that they have going on in California right now involve solar, and they're required. I don't know the specific requirements, but I know that putting up new construction, they require solar to be put on them. Tesla's involved in solar. So like a lot of these, and these are questions that we've obviously fielded many times, is people are saying, well, what about this area? Tesla's in that area. What about this area? Tesla's in that area. Like Tesla's literally got their hands in the future of the climate for the world. So that's why Jack is saying that as far as an ETF or an index fund go, Tesla is its own because it does have its hands involved in energy. So when we're talking about solar, battery storage, all of that, that's Tesla. EVs, the charging stations and everything that go along with it, the whole infrastructure that we are going to need for EVs, it's all Tesla. So these areas moving forward, Tesla's going to have their hands in it. Not to say that there aren't other areas that, could be out there, but just the return on my investment that I would get from it would not be the same in my eyes that I would get from a Tesla.
Yeah, and the thing, Pedro, about becoming a Tesla investor is just that it's a full-time job.
It is.
I mean, this is why, I mean, you just look around, right, on social media. I mean, how many people basically make a living off of like Tim here, and, reporting. I mean, there are so many layers and it's so complex. And this is the reason why it's so, I don't know, educational, interesting, to me to see the comments from people that are from the outside looking in, and especially the haters, the ones that have some personal beef with like Elon or something. They just, read headlines off of mainstream media and things, who have their own vested interest in seeing, Tesla fail. When you have like big mainstream media where 60% of their revenue dollars, advertisement dollars, come from legacy autos, I mean, guess who they're going to talk favorably from, right? And guess who they're going to bash. And I mean, it just, becoming a Tesla investor really kind of opens your eyes also to the level of, I don't know, how money really makes the world go around, and the level of corruption in so many levels. And, to go into this, and, this is why I'm such a huge fan of the Tesla community, especially on Twitter. I mean, it's just, you're surrounded by like these people that are just really, really intelligent. They're very passionate. And, and it just, yes, it can become an echo chamber. And I think we always, in the Tesla community, have to be on the lookout for something like that. But I mean, it's just, I don't know, I have yet to get into a discussion with someone on the counter argument against Tesla, where it wouldn't go but like 2-3 tweets and suddenly they block me. Or they just don't want to talk about it anymore because
and like Brooke said, there's YouTubers that make channels strictly to just bash negative, put negative stuff out there.
I mean, could you imagine being that person? I mean, where your goal to wake up every morning is to talk negatively about something. I don't know, people, I don't get some people. It's
Well, Jack, I know you've got to get going, so we'll get out of here as well. Thank you guys so much for being here. I do not have it right now in the comments or in the description, but I will put in the pinned comment below links to both of their YouTubes and to their Twitter channels as well. So you guys definitely check both of these guys out. Pedro, I will give you a list of all the people to follow on Twitter for Tesla. There's an amazing community. And like Jack said, like there's people who are just niche, like James Stevenson when it comes to charts, brilliant guy. There's like so much going on with Tesla. You can focus on just one area and be very successful in that one area. So I'll give you a good long list of all the guys to follow over there.
Awesome. Thank you for the invite. I highly enjoyed it.
Welcome. Thank you guys. Nice we will definitely have an episode 3 at some point. Thank you, everyone. We will see you all later.
Have a great week.
You too.